A lot of you guys asked me yesterday to make a video on Barcelona and why are we struggling or all the problems wrong with Barcelona. Well, in this video, we're going to take a look at all of that. I've listed some like 11 or 12 things that we have a problem with the season, and today we're going to discuss that in this video. But as always, before we get into everything, please do subscribe to the channel, as that's going to help us to grow as a family even bigger. I will also be linking a Facebook page down below to see and to have more discussions with you guys. But I want to start with our defensive problems, and I think this is a huge problem that we have to address. The first problem I usually have or see when we defend, we normally defend with the two players up front, right? And then we have our number 10 sitting on the deepest midfielder, right? We don't have cover for the wings, as the opponents can easily play the ball out to the wings. But here's what happens, and this is what my problem is. Because when Robert Lewandowski goes pressing from an angle, and you would know this if you watch the channel, you often see that they press the center back, and then the ball gets played to that fullback, right? Or these guys can even become like a two to be two options next to the player that he can be passing the ball towards. And this is now where our fullback has to come up all the way to press over there. And this is where the ball can now be played in behind. And this is that goal that happens against Girona, the opening goal, right? And now these guys are not coming up everybody in sync. They already press when the ball goes to the player, then they want to press. That is the problem. I think Xavi should be trying to have a zonal marking structure. We can't be playing a man-to-man structure against teams, because I find that teams are playing out from the back against Barcelona way too easily. We should be implementing a man-to-man structure. If we're going to press, then these guys have to press in sync. They can't press once the ball goes to the player, then they want to press. This is the problem that I have with Barcelona. So I think the best for us would be to play with a zonal structure. So when Barcelona circulates the ball, when the ball is doing its rounds like we normally do, Barcelona has this thing where they want to have the whole team of the opposition on one side, right? So everybody goes over to that one side, because I think this is where they want to overload, to isolate, And I talked about the fact that when we do lose the ball, in previous video, I mentioned that we should be marking this player right over here, right? Because when they circulate the ball, they immediately go to the side, because the opponents know that the space of the opponents will be over there, right? And I don't think that when Barcelona eventually, when we lose the ball, we don't press effectively, the counter pressing. We don't come up and try to stop these guys over here. And I've been calling for this, sweeper keeper role that I want to see at Barcelona, so that we can have a higher line and actually compress the opponents to only play in this section of the pitch. But we don't see that, when we lose the ball, we don't go back and we don't gegenpress fast enough, and that's something we should be looking at, right? We should be looking at when we are defending our box, right? We tend to defend it in a very, very narrow situation. We tend to defend the width of the box, right? You saw in the previous video. Just go back and watch it. Barcelona defend extremely narrow. Now, this could cause you serious troubles, because if you remember the game against Girona, I was mentioning it, and you can go and, like I said, go back and watch it. Koundé was defending two guys. Eventually, Koundé had to stay inside, and eventually, when this guy was making the run, Koundé had to go over to him, and then this guy went into the box and he scored, right? That is the problem we have with defending narrow. Teams can easily outnumber us, right? And I think the same way that Xavi approaches us having possession, trying to overload the midfield, he should do that the same when we defend. And by the way, what if teams have like a three-man midfield? Like in the core here, this is why we concede so many goals. Like, aren't we priding ourselves in having numerical advantages, right? However, I have a solution. What if we defend in a 4-5-1 situation, so that we can cover our wings better, and then Robert Lewandowski can just sit on their deep line player. So therefore the wingers can be tightly contested, and now only the center backs has the ball. Why don't we defend like this? Because you guys talk about the double pivot, but we still concede goals even with a double pivot. We just conceded 4 goals the other day. We conceded 3 goals against Antwerp with a double pivot. And I hope you realize now and you can see a double pivot does not fit Barcelona. How many times do we have to talk about this? A double pivot does not fit or suit Barcelona. It doesn't. It's holding us back, guys. It's holding us back, especially when we're defending with the double pivot. Now, this is my problem with the double pivot. Last night I noticed something. When we have a pivot, teams tend to come narrow or they commit a lot of more players forward. You know what that does? That brings the opponents forward, and we are Barcelona and we don't play the long balls. I've noticed, like with Iñaki Peña, we have played quite a few long balls, and we don't particularly have a guy in Robert Lewandowski that is good like holding up the ball. And by the way, that is not Barcelona, right? Because ultimately when teams push up, the space will be in behind, right? You can't have a double pivot bringing a team forward and then not play the ball in behind. That is, your tactics have to build on each other. And I've noticed this with poor Oriol Romeo. When the guys come, teams can commit players forward, and this congests the space and this compress the opposition. And now you expect the guys to be playing out through this congested space. And when they do get pressed, the guys have to the nervy passes and the quick passes that the guys have to give because the opponents are now trying to put pressure. And this is something that Xavi don't understand. Our guys are not good at playing under pressure. Now, just look at the difference when you have a single pivot. Now teams cannot be narrow anymore because now you can see immediately we're starting to have numerical advantages. Now, if this guy go forward, there's a 3 versus 2 right there, right? If it goes this side, it's the same. If they press, there's a 3 versus 2 there. So that gives you guys your guys options. When this guy is a free 8, he's an option for a pass. But the moment he's in a pivot, he's marked. There's no other option. So it becomes obvious these guys have to pass to the fullbacks, and they can pass through an angle by cutting passing lanes. And that is what I hate double pivot. I can't, guys. I hate the double pivot. I hate it with a passion. I do not like a double pivot because I've realized that it is just making a build up very bad. Have you noticed how many balls we lost against Antwerp because of this double pivot nonsense? I don't like it. Now look here, Christensen having the ball. The only way that he can pass the ball is backwards to Koundé, because the pass to Oriol Romeo is totally out, and he can't pass the ball to the other pivot either, to Sergio Roberto. So if there was a single pivot, that passing lane would have been open, right? Because Oriol Romeo's positioning is affected by Sergio Roberto's positioning. But if Sergio Roberto wasn't there, Oriol Romeo would have been more centrally. A major issue I also have is the fact that everybody, all our wingers, wants to cut inside. Even Lamine Yamal. I know he does a good job of staying outside, attacking the byline. But how many times have you seen Lamine Yamal inverting as well? However, the winger inverting, and this is again why the double pivot is a problem, because he can only invert if this guy drops back, and he can't drop back because there's already the double pivot occupying that space. So we have wings that are totally unattended at times, especially the left wing. And that is a huge problem, something that we don't understand as fans, because the guys always wants to cut inside. And you know what's funny? Everybody cuts inside, but nobody takes the shot. Can you believe it? There's no runs in behind. We're going to talk about that later on as well. There's nobody that runs in behind and then try to take a shot on target, right? And nobody cuts inside and take a shot. And that is just so annoying for me. I can't explain to you guys how I hate that. I never realized when I was watching the games, I watched a few games yesterday since I saw those comments from you guys. I watched a few games, and this is the problems that I noticed. And the biggest problem stems from this double pivot, the movement of the wings, us being under pressure in the build up is because of the double pivot, the winger inverting, and is a problem because then the free it can't invert because there's already a double pivot in that space. And this is why I made a video like way back in the beginning. I told you guys maybe Xavi is moving away from the Barcelona way. And it's just so annoying, guys. Everybody wants to cut inside. That means there's no movement, and we are so predictable. You've seen against Antwerp how Varane always cuts inside, Lamine Yamal also cut inside. Rafinha, Joao Felix, everybody just cuts inside, and that is so annoying for me, guys. I can't explain to you guys how I hate that cutting inside because of the double pivot being there, and that is something we need to understand. Guys, that is all for now. I think I'm gonna have to do a part 2 because I'm just seeing now the video is getting long. So do let me know down in the comment section what do you think, and if you made it this far, please comment Robert Lewandowski. All right, thank you very much for watching. Please do not forget to subscribe, and also don't forget about our Patreon coming up. Please be on the lookout for that. Thank you very much for watching. See you in part 2.